military policy. And it was started out as a bill that you mentioned that you and Evan Bayh co-sponsored, and then you inserted it in the Defense Appropriations Act that blends military and civilian service, the 18-24-18 policy, which I won't explain. But it's leading me to a larger question. Why wouldn't we have compulsory military service in America that has a civilian component, that if someone wants to opt out of military service, they can do their civilian service, like in your bill, and that it would become a unifying thing for America?
Well, Rick, first of all, I think that as much as I treasure our military service, there's lots of ways to serve our country too, and I want to emphasize that. I know we're talking a lot about the military, but there's so many ways to serve this country, and there's so many ways that are noble and wonderful, both at home and abroad. So I want to make that perfectly clear. I think that it's very clear that AmeriCorps has been one of the astonishing successes. Peace Corps, we've seen the success for a long time because Jack Kennedy obviously originated it. But we have seen these volunteer organizations succeed. And if we need to, whether it's connected to the military or not, provide them with sufficient reward and sufficient recognition. You know, a lot of these young people are more proud of the fact that we recognize them, ones walking around with a red jacket that say City Year, than they are about the money. You know, I mean, that's what they're all about. So I'd be glad to reward them as much as possible. But you want to be careful that the reason is not the reward of financial or other reasons, but the reward is the satisfaction of serving a cause greater than yourself. But that'd be fine with me. Finding new ways to serve. That's what this next few years should be all about.
Senator McCain, Senator Obama has put forward a national service plan to do some of the things you've talked about. The two of you agree, but his has a price tag of around $3.5 billion. Is that an amount of money you'd be willing to spend, more or less? I mean, is that in the ballpark?
I'd be glad to spend money. I don't think that should be the first priority in the kinds of benefits that are reaped from the kind of thing we're trying to seek. I haven't agreed with all of what Senator Obama has proposed, but I think they're very good proposals there. Some of them are new, some of them are obviously not. But I also want to emphasize it doesn't always have to be run by the government. That's why we also ought to understand that faith-based organizations, other volunteer organizations that are completely separate from the government, that have nothing to do with the government, are amongst the most successful. So let's not get entrapped by the idea that the government has to run these voluntary organizations and volunteer kinds of programs, because a lot of times the job can be done better with our encouragement.
So you're not in favor necessarily of a distinct government role?
Oh, we have a distinct government role. The Peace Corps, AmeriCorps, all of these other organizations, but I want to be careful about expanding it when my philosophy is, let's not have government do things that the private sector can do or other organizations can do. That's just my theory of government. So, look, I applaud Senator Obama's commitment to national service. He makes a very strong case, and I look forward to joining him no matter what happens in November. This is a cause a lot bigger than anything to do with partisanship. Actually,
speaking of that, I was going to ask an internet question. We'll get back to that. Governor Schwarzenegger in California has made service, the service czar in California, a cabinet-level appointment. If you were president, would you do the same and make service a cabinet-level appointment? And would you perhaps ask Senator Obama to be the member of your cabinet for national service?
Yes. Right now, as you know, there's an office in the White House, the Freedom Corps office. That office coordinates all these different organizations, which, rightly or wrongly, fall many times under different departments. I think if you have that person right down the hall from the Oval Office and you're working with that person on a daily basis, that's probably the most effective way to do it. You know, every time we see a problem, we sort of, let's create another cabinet post. Now we've got so many members of the cabinet that the cabinet never meets, as you well know. So I'd rather see a powerful, influential, outstanding person sitting in that office who I could literally deal with every day.
Senator, at the Republican convention, a couple of speakers, most notably your running mate, vice presidential nominee Sarah Palin, made somewhat derisive comments about Senator Obama's experience as a community organizer. I've heard you say you haven't taken that tone. So I guess my question is, are you saying to others in your campaign and your supporters that that's not the kind of language you want to hear?
Well,
how are you approaching that?
First of all, this is a tough business. Second of all, I think the tone of this whole campaign would have been very different if Senator Obama had accepted my request for us to appear in town hall meetings all over America, the same way Jack Kennedy and Barry Goldwater had agreed to do so. I know that because I've been in enough campaigns. Look, Governor Palin was responding to the criticism of her inexperience and her job as a mayor in a small town. That's what she was responding to. Of course I respect community organizers. Of course I respect people who serve their community. And Senator Obama's record there is outstanding. And so I praise anyone who serves this nation in capacities that, frankly, we all know that could have been far more financially rewarding to individuals rather than doing what they did.
Less significant than the work of a small-town mayor?
I think a small-town mayor has very great responsibilities. They have responsibility for the budget. They have hiring and firing of people. They have great responsibilities. They have to stand for election. I admire mayors. Listen, mayors have the toughest job, I think, in America. It's easy for me to go to Washington and frankly, be somewhat divorced from the day-to-day challenges people have. So I admire mayors. I admire anyone who is willing to serve their community and their country. And that's what this is all about. And this is what today's all about. And we should set aside this partisanship, at least for this day, praise one another for our dedication to this country. That's what I do.
We have less than a minute left in this segment, and here's a specific question about setting aside partisanship. Senator Kennedy and Senator Hatch, two old friends in the Senate, have sponsored a bipartisan bill on national service that I think, among other things, would triple the size of AmeriCorps and really put a lot of the strength of the federal government behind national service. As president, would you sign that bill?
Yes, but I want it, of course. Our prayers are always with Ted Kennedy. I understand he's coming back in January. I greet that with mixed emotions. I love him. I'm so happy, seriously, that Senator Kennedy is on the road to recovery. He's a lion of the Senate. Look, I would sign that legislation, but I also want to caution again, government can't do it all. The essence of volunteerism starts at the grassroots level, does not start necessarily at the federal government level. So let's make sure we maintain the balance between federal involvement and encouragement of volunteerism and service to the nation, but also let's not in any way stifle what already is going on and is very, very successful in America, and that's organizations that have no dependence whatsoever on our federal government and do such a great job for all of our citizens.
All right, Senator, we're going to take another break. We'll be right back.